In Psalm 75, Asaph, or one of Asaph's priestly descendants, describes the cup of God's final judgment against the wicked nations that are assembled to destroy Jerusalem at the end of the age. Now, here is where I need to make a little bit of a correction in my reading plan. We are here in week 12 discussing Psalm 75, but upon further research, I have become convinced that Psalm 75 probably belongs earlier. I think, as some commentators, they debate whether it's written later during the Assyrian threat or earlier, as early as the reign of David. And I do think Psalm 75 should be dated earlier, just based on my personal observation and research. Again, scholars debate either way, and so it could be early as the kingdom and reign of David, or it could be as late as the Assyrian invasion. And like I said, there's debates on both sides. I am actually going to move this forward in the reading plan all the way to week 4. And so I'm kind of recording this video now in week 12, but I'm going to actually go back and upload it into week 4 because I feel like it belongs earlier. So I give you that little bit of preface as we get going. And in the notes, I've actually I've listed a whole lot of what would be the Isaiah references. So I've got references from David and I've got references from Isaiah, and you can kind of lean either way depending on what you think. But I went ahead and just included both of them. So they're kind of fascinating to see in the notes. I'm not going to go over them all in the video, but there you can kind of see both arguments. So let's jump in. Interestingly, really what this psalmist, Asaph, I think this actually was Asaph during the reign of David or shortly after, Asaph is really challenging Israel to rely on God and expressing the futility or even the disastrous results of self-reliance and trying to remove our reliance on God from the equation of our self-determination and our success and prosperity, that kind of thing. Trying to prosper and accomplish God's purposes apart from God leads to disaster. That's kind of the point of this psalm. And other psalms are going to reiterate that this week as well. But he starts out saying, "We give thanks to you, O God. We give thanks for your name is near." Now, this little phrase for name, God's name, often represents his authority or his power. It's his kingdom advancing. And David wrote quite a bit about the name of the Lord. And I've got references pulled up in the notes that you can look at those. But he would cite prayers like, "May the name of the God of Jacob protect you," saying, "May the power and authority of God." His name represented his promises and his covenants. I mean, it was his capacity and power to accomplish those purposes. So we give thanks. We recount your wondrous deeds at the set time that I appoint. At this point in verse 2, he's kind of switching to this first person where he's kind of speaking for the Lord. And the Lord is saying, "At the set time that I appoint, says the Lord, I will judge with equity. When the earth totters and all of its inhabitants, and it's I who keep the pillars steady." He's calling to just the supremacy of God and his ultimate leadership over not just Israel and its history, but over the kingdoms of the earth. Even when the earth totters, it's the Lord who holds it steadfast. And interestingly, I love this little cross reference. I'll come to it in a minute. I'd like to get ahead of myself with the cross references, but let's just get a few more verses deep. He says to the boastful, "Do not boast," and to the wicked, "Do not lift up your horn." Now, their horn is kind of similar to their name. Their horn represented their power, their authority, or the leadership capacity of a authority figure. It could be another ruler of another nation. It could be the rulers of Israel. So their authority and their leadership was represented by their horn. And so he said, if you lift up your own horn, he says, don't boast. Don't lift up your own horn or speak with a haughty neck, speaking boastful words. Why? For not from the east or from the west, not from the wilderness, which is believed to be a reference to the south, that does not from the east or from the west or from the south come lifting up, but from God who executes judgment, putting down one and lifting up another. And this is where I love this cross-reference where David, I've got it listed in the notes. I'm just going to read it to you quickly here. In 1 Chronicles 29, David says it's in God's hands are the power and might to make one great or bring one down or to give strength to all. It's ultimately God who is the one who is giving favor, taking favor, and has the leadership and power and might over the nations of the earth. And then you got verse 8, for in the hand of the Lord there is a cup mixed with foaming wine, well mixed, and he pours out from it and all the wicked of the earth shall drain it down to the dregs. The dregs are like down to the last drop of just the wood that's left in the barrel. Of just the wood that's left in the barrel. At this point, it's really this cup of judgment. It's a cup of covenant curses. Now, Isaiah will later reference this cup in Isaiah 51. In fact, I think I have it in the notes. In Isaiah 51, he talks about how during the tribulation, it's Israel who drinks of the cup of God's discipline. But as their Messiah comes, that cup is transferred to their adversaries. And this is what's being described here by Asaph. He says, the Lord has a cup of wrath. It's a cup of covenant curses that we would read in Leviticus 26 and Deuteronomy 28 that gets poured out on the wicked nations who are assembled against Israel. And they drink it down fully. It's like a time when the fullness of God's wrath is poured out and those wicked nations absorb it in a final sense, in an ultimate way. And which is all part of the biblical narrative that we've been reading over weeks. But I will declare it forever. I will sing praises to the God of Jacob. All the horns of the wicked will be cut off, but the horns of the righteous will be lifted up. Now again, there's that difference, that distinction where he's calling Israel and any righteous believer, any righteous leader of any authority of the nations to say, listen, if you exalt your own horn, if you embrace this prideful posture of trying to remove any kind of reliance on the Lord and just rule the Lord out of your leadership strategy, well, you're going to end up in disaster. Your horn is going to be cut off. But the horns of the righteous will be lifted up. Why? Because it's God who ultimately comes and brings restoration. He brings life and peace and judgment on the wicked. So that's a little bit that I'm going to cover for Isaiah, I keep saying Isaiah because we've been in the middle of Isaiah, but for Psalm 75, let me make sure I'm not missing anything else in the notes. Like I mentioned, if you wanted to draw a lot of comparisons to Isaiah, I actually put those comparisons in the notes, and scholars sometimes go back and forth about, well, is Isaiah referencing the psalmist? Or is the psalmist referencing Isaiah? But I think because of other references and the way that this fits with other Psalms of Asaph that would have been actually written by Asaph during the kingdom of David, I'm putting this forward in week 4 and suggesting that possibly Isaiah drew from some of what's listed here.